I took care of our economy like I would take care of my own company.
A tariff is a tax on a foreign country. That's the way it is, whether you like it or not. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's a tax on us. No. It's a tax on a foreign country.
Well, I think we just make it very clear. Tariffs add to the price of goods. It's really that simple. If you're a business and you need to import things and you have to pay a tariff, you have to make that extra expense up. Trump brags about how he's the only president who wants to have skyrocketing tariffs. You got to stop and think about why that is. They make it more difficult for us to compete, and they would push inflation up. So Donald Trump's economic policy here is a disaster.
With or without her trusty whiteboard, it's good to have Katie Porter back in front of the Midas Mighty to share her thoughts on Trump's disastrous economic policy. Because disastrous it will be if he's given a second bite at fascism.
We also do have nonpartisan groups like the Penn Wharton group that put out their budget model and said that Donald Trump would take the deficit 5.8 trillion she'd only add 1.2 trillion. You had Goldman Sachs that came out today and they said that the GDP will significantly decrease under Donald Trump and it'll continue to increase under Kamala Harris. Look at what Moody's has said, also nonpartisan, talking about how if you're going to round up a bunch of immigrants and you're going to have tariffs, which he keeps saying isn't a tax on consumers, and that's what the national tax is that people are talking about. If you're going to implement tariffs, guess what's going to happen? The economy is going to suffer for it. That's not what Kamala Harris is proposing.
This week, Donald Trump had numerous opportunities to go into specific detail about what his plans were for a second term. And when I say specific detail, I mean big, beautiful numbers and stuff.
It's a very important issue, but I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that because
taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country.
His answer to a question on the accessibility of childcare in America was so unhinged and lacking any sense of direction, it made J.D. Vance's train wreck of an answer seem somewhat digestible, which of course it was not. That's just how bad Trump's was.
What can we do about lowering the cost of daycare? Hayden, obviously a working family, and it's very hard for working families to get by. How will we lower the cost of daycare?
Such an important question, Charlie. And I think one of the things that we can do is make it easier for family models to choose, or for families to choose whatever model they want, right? So one of the ways that you might be able to relieve a little bit of pressure on people who are paying so much for daycare is make it so that maybe like grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more, or maybe there's an aunt or uncle that wants to help out a little bit more. If that happens, you relieve some of the pressure on all the resources that we're spending in daycare.
And things only got worse for the former president when Goldman Sachs, not exactly the North Star of liberal ideology, released a report predicting that Trump would be worse for the economy if elected as opposed to Kamala Harris. News that, yes, made its way onto the Fox News airwaves, meaning there must have been a significant amount of ketchup tossed at the walls at Mar-a-Lago.
It turns out, according to early analyses, and again, she's only been the nominee for a little while here, her plans could actually be better for U.S. economic growth than Donald Trump's tariff plans. That's according to the Wall Street firm Goldman Sachs.
Reuters reports that Goldman says this. Goldman Sachs sees biggest boost to U.S. economy from Harris win, and that was one of their analysts yesterday. So,
that's gonna hurt.
But on the topic of specifics, I wanted to bring this video to your attention. MSNBC's Lawrence O'Donnell invited Katie Porter on his show to discuss Trump's love affair with tariffs, to which she went into specific detail, actual detail, Donald, as to why his economic policy is in fact a disaster.
A tariff is a tax on a foreign country. That's the way it is, whether you like it or not. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's a tax on us. No. It's a tax on a foreign country. It's a tax on a country that's ripping us off and stealing our jobs. And it's a tax that doesn't affect our country. And you could see hundreds of billions of dollars of tariffs on other countries also.
Well, I think we just make it very clear. Tariffs add to the price of goods. It's really that simple. If you're a business and you need to import things and you have to pay a tariff, you have to make that extra expense up. It's interesting to me that Donald Trump brags about how he's the only president who wants to have skyrocketing tariffs. You got to stop and think about why that is. It's because other presidents, both Republican and Democrat, understand that tariffs ultimately are really damaging to a country's economy. They make it more difficult for us to compete, and they would push inflation up. So Donald Trump's economic policy here is a disaster, and you don't have to take it from me. As you said earlier, Lawrence, Goldman Sachs, not exactly a bastion of liberal progressive economic policy, themselves have said that Donald Trump's tariff policies would cost our economy billions.
And this right here is why we need more Katie Porter on this subject, because we've all had the privilege of watching her tear apart opposing lawmakers and Wall Street types as they try to convince the American people that Joe Biden is a reason for increased inflation, despite it being a global issue, without actually taking a closer look at the train wreck that Joe Biden inherited and the repercussions for everyone else. A train that Donald Trump is hell-bent on conducting once more full speed, solely for the benefit of his rich friends at the expense of everyone else.
Because you're all people that have a lot of money. I know 20 of you and you're rich as hell. We're going to give you tax cuts. We're going to pay off our debt. We're going to do all of the things that we have.
I wonder whether he has any notion what a hard day's work is. I mean, all he did was lose his father's money. And then get in trouble and have to owe a lot of other people money. And then borrow a lot of money and give tax cuts to the super wealthy and end up with the largest debt any president's left behind in 4 years. He has an incredible record.
Whereas Kamala Harris has actually outlined her economic plans if she is to be elected, including a tax break for small businesses without any red tape that is such good policy, Fox News couldn't even deny it.
It's really hard to think that she's going to walk back on all of that right now.
I just want to press the point. When a political candidate comes up with what I think is a good idea, I have to call it a good idea. And a $50,000 tax cut for small, not tax cut, but a tax credit for startups or small businesses, coupled with less red tape. I gotta say, that is a good idea.
Thanks. Whose plan are you liking, and what really speaks to you in your state? What will work with voters there?
So again, when we talk about the voters, we're talking about that 8 to 10% of swing voters, right? Those are the ones that are still up for play and probably will be through October. It's not the economy, it's cost of living. And those voters are going to be swayed by who is the change agent, right? Who is the individual? Is it Kamala Harris or is it Donald Trump that'll be an agent of change to make my life more affordable? It's not about the number of jobs that are created. People have jobs. They just want things to be affordable again, and that's it. And between now and November 5th, the rent comes due, right, on the 1st. The credit card bills keep coming in. The energy bills the electric bills keep coming in. There's a lot of costs American families are going to have, and that's the anxiety, right? Anxiety is what drives someone to go to the voting booth and ask for change. And Americans still have a lot of anxiety, especially with an impending recession, which is very real. And there's no question Donald Trump is always going to be more trusted as someone that's been on the front lines in business, can actually speak to details.
But today was also about Donald Trump's economic speech, and we watched a lot of it. And I would dare any of you to listen to his answer on childcare and tell me what the hell he was talking about. It was one of the more incoherent things I've ever heard. He thinks tariffs are going to pay for everything. We know that they're a tax on the consumer. But this really highlights a big problem that everyone is saying, well, Trump is so transparent and Trump's out there and that's all that matters. What matters is the content of what he's saying. And none of it is explainable. This issue, which is a big priority for people, obviously a central plank of what's going on in the Harris campaign, he doesn't have an answer besides tariffs. And J.D. Vance yesterday was talking about just have grandma and grandpa do more, that's some sort of solution for people. He's going to have energy prices, drill baby drill, even though we're producing more oil than we ever have before, leading the world, more tax cuts for the rich, and tariffs are the only way that we're going to be paying for it.
I think tariffs are designed to punish countries who subsidize their products.
But they don't work that way. And
no, for specific countries they do. Look, I know.
You know what?
I know tariffs.
I've dated tariffs.
So please, journalists watching who are covering Trump's upcoming low-energy ramblings, this is a level of retort necessary. Because it's not enough to just point out the obvious that his answers need a leash, but why even amidst the unhinged rambling, he's actually very wrong.
I know some smart rich people. In fact, I think maybe all the rich people I know are smart. But there's a lot of stupid rich people. And New York's stupidest rich people gathered in one room today and proved how stupid they are with reactions like this.
Caracas, Venezuela has almost no crime. Next year, I'm going to suggest that the Economic Club hold its meeting in Caracas because we'll be safer than we are in our country if they win. We'll be far safer.
Now just think about how stupid you have to be to say that. Then think about how stupid you have to be to clap for that.
Make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you. Very good question. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Child care is child care. That guy talking isn't the problem. It's those people clapping.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.